Let's dive into an intriguing scenario that feels straight out of a dystopian novel, but is very real and located right in the heart of Central Asia. In Turkmenistan, a landlocked country with about 6 million people, daily life is marked by a unique and strict level of control. Here, the country's leader has the authority to dictate even the color of cars that citizens are allowed to drive and to modify the calendar as he sees fit. The press is tightly controlled, freedom of movement is limited, and women face restrictions, including rules about where they can sit in a car. This isn't the script for a film about fictional authoritarian regimes. It's the reality of Turkmenistan, a place rarely mentioned in international news. With its vast desert areas like the Karakum Desert and a rich heritage as a historical corridor of the Silk Road, the country offers a fascinating contrast between the ancient and the modern. Its capital, Ashgabat, known for its lavish white marble monuments, reflects the marks of a nation that was absorbed by the Russian Empire in the 19th century and later became part of the Soviet Union before gaining independence. This country is a box of historical and cultural surprises, wrapped in a regime that firmly controls every aspect of its citizens' lives. Predominantly inhabited by Turkmen, the country also has minorities of Russians and Uzbeks, reflecting a considerable ethnic diversity. Turkmen, the official language, shares roots with other languages in the region like Turkish, Kazakh, Azeri, Uzbek, and Kyrgyz, highlighting extensive cultural and historical ties. Religiously, the spiritual landscape of Turkmenistan is dominated by Sunni Islam, with about 90% of the population adhering to the faith. A minority follows Orthodox Christianity. Although the country officially recognizes freedom of belief, in practice, there are significant barriers to fully practicing religion, including restrictions on access to places of worship and censorship of materials related to religious practices. Governed in an authoritarian manner by Serdar Berdimuhamedov, who succeeded his father in power, Turkmenistan exemplifies the complexity of a country that, while preserving a rich cultural heritage, maintains tight control over various aspects of its citizens' lives. The country keeps constant surveillance over its citizens, strictly controlling the media and internet to limit freedom of expression and suppress any opposition. Known as the least democratic nation in the world, internet access is severely restricted, and censorship is commonplace, with the government actively monitoring online activities and censoring social media content. Those who attempt to bypass these restrictions face imprisonment or even disappearance. On the economic front, despite a lack of transparency in its statistics, it's known that Turkmenistan heavily relies on cotton and energy resources as pillars of its economy. It stands out as one of the world's top cotton producers and holds vast reserves of oil and natural gas, ranking globally in these sectors. These resources are primarily exported to countries like Ukraine, Iran, Turkey, Russia, and the United Arab Emirates. Turkmenistan is a country where citizens live in constant fear due to state repression and tight control. The wealth generated from exports isn't shared with the population. Instead, it's used to build a lavish capital. Ashgabat, the capital with a population of 1 million, is marked by massive white marble buildings, luxurious attractions, and bronze statues of the leaders, earning it the nickname City of the Dead. Additionally, the country is often compared to North Korea for having one of the most oppressive regimes in the world, where a personality cult elevates the leader to an almost divine status, a practice that's intensely visible in both countries. School textbooks often portray leaders in almost mythical tones, as messianic figures, which can pave the way for easily manipulating the masses. A vivid example of this is Turkmenistan, a country that gained independence with the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, and has since been ruled by only 3 presidents, who acted more like dictators. The first of them, Saparmurat Niyazov, led the country from 1985 to 2006, initially as the General Secretary of the Communist Party, and after independence, as the self-declared lifelong president. He established an extreme personality cult, even proclaiming himself president for life and creating eccentric laws. After his death, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov took office in 2006, and although he toned down this practice slightly, he still maintained traces of that intense veneration. When Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov took power in Turkmenistan in 2006, he repealed some of the more eccentric laws of his predecessor Niyazov, but continued to suppress any form of opposition and kept a tight grip on the media. In 2022, leadership passed to Serdar Berdimuhamedov, Gurbanguly's son, continuing the political dynasty. The former president, Saparmurat Niyazov, was notorious for taking the personality cult to absurd extremes. He made reading his book, Runama, mandatory, not only in educational institutions but also as a requirement for obtaining a driver's license and public sector jobs. Niyazov even went as far as renaming months of the year in honor of himself, his mother, and his literary work. Additionally, he banned cultural practices like ballet, opera, and circus performances, prohibited dogs in public areas, and banned smoking in public places. Under his rule, tax revenues and state profits were frequently channeled into beautifying the capital, in clear adulation of the leader, at the expense of the population's needs. Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov took office and initially introduced some surprising changes that seemed to signal a possible path toward reform. He made moves like restoring the old calendar, removing the mandatory reading of a book written by his predecessor, and even took down several statues of the former leader. These actions suggested an openness to reform, but this impression was short-lived. Berdimuhamedov quickly began building his own personality cult, making his image ubiquitous and transforming the capital, Ashgabat, into a white marble metropolis, with 543 buildings made from this material, according to local reports. This transformation indicated less of a shift toward democratization and more of a replacement of one form of authoritarianism with another. In the midst of a severe hunger crisis affecting his people, the president occupied himself with unusual pastimes. He enjoyed fishing, performing as a DJ, throwing knives in displays for soldiers, and even designing cars. This showiness, in stark contrast to his people's misery, revealed the essence of his authoritarian rule, which even went so far as to shut down hospitals outside the capital, forcing the sick to travel long distances to seek medical care. The leader was also known for his superstitions, particularly his belief that the color white brought good luck. This belief led him to make eccentric decisions, like replacing all government vehicles with white Mercedes in 2014. The following year, he banned the import of black cars, and by 2018 he decreed that all vehicles in the country had to be white. This resulted in the seizure of cars in other colors in the capital, Ashgabat, with their owners fined for violating the decree. Automotive policy in the country took an even stranger turn when, in addition to mandating white as the only permitted color for vehicles in 2018, the government decided to ban women from obtaining driver's licenses or driving cars. This measure was widely criticized by the international community and various human rights organizations, who saw it as a major setback for women's rights and a clear violation of their fundamental freedoms. Alongside these controversial policies, Turkmenistan's political landscape is also highly questionable, with elections that resemble a political charade. The current leader, Serdar Berdimuhamedov, wins by overwhelming margins, mirroring practices seen in authoritarian regimes like North Korea. Elections are not free, and results often verge on near unanimity, pointing to manipulation and a lack of genuine democracy. Press freedom in the country is alarmingly restricted, reportedly even worse than in North Korea. Journalists face obstacles in entering the country, and tourist visas are a rarity. Despite this strict control, the capital, Ashgabat, stands out with its imposing buildings that are often empty. The few international tourists who do manage to enter are closely monitored and restricted to activities within the capital. Against this backdrop of restrictions, the country's leader, Berdimuhamedov, attempted to polish his image as a dictator by hosting the Asian Indoor and Martial Arts Games in 2017, using an Olympic village that cost an astronomical $5 billion and was only in use for a few weeks. Additionally, the capital's airport was modernized with a $2 billion investment. These lavish expenses occur in a context lacking government transparency, with severe issues in freedom and democracy that deeply impact the lives of the population. Located in Central Asia, Turkmenistan is an energy giant, holding 10% of the world's natural gas reserves. making it the fourth largest player in the sector. The country is also self-sufficient in oil and ranks as the ninth largest cotton producer globally. However, Turkmenistan's geographical location presents significant challenges. Its lack of coastline complicates the export of its abundant natural resources. The main export route for Turkmen gas is through pipelines that must pass through neighboring countries, adding logistical and political complexities. Currently, 80% of Turkmenistan's exported gas goes to China, transported via pipelines that cross Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. Additionally, there's a pipeline connection with Iran, which broadens export routes but also increases geopolitical dependencies. Turkmenistan is looking for ways to diversify its trade partners and reduce its dependence on China. One of its plans involves constructing an ambitious pipeline that would pass through Afghanistan and Pakistan, extending all the way to India. However, political challenges and regional instability pose significant barriers to realizing this project. In the midst of internal political turbulence, March 2022 marked a leadership change in Turkmenistan. Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov stepped down from the presidency, handing the reins to his son, Serdar Berdimuhamedov, marking the third power transition since the country gained independence in 1991. Despite being in office for 2 years, the new president has maintained a conservative stance, continuing the policies of his predecessors. This adherence to the same principles has raised concerns about the continuation of repressive governance, with numerous prohibitions and strict restrictions on individual freedoms. Amid the Karakum Desert in Turkmenistan lies one of the planet's most intriguing natural wonders, the Darvaza crater, also known as the Door to Hell. This fiery pit, measuring 70 meters wide and 20 meters deep, has captivated curious onlookers for over 4 decades with its intense and constant flames. The crater's origin dates back to the 1970s when Soviet geologists were exploring the area for natural gas and accidentally drilled into an underground cavern, causing the ground to collapse and releasing dangerous gases. To prevent a larger environmental disaster, the scientists decided to ignite the gas, hoping the flames would quickly burn out. However, they underestimated the amount of methane present, which has kept the fire alive to this day. The sight of the crater is both terrifying and mesmerizing, with its radiant orange glow and scorching heat visible from afar in the nighttime desert. Now a tourist icon, the Door to Hell, is a striking reminder of nature's unpredictable power and the consequences of human intervention.